Hey, you guys. We are back, or I am back. Blueies and Shoeies, and I'm covering the Eastern Conference. So if you haven't, jump on and listen to the first episode covering MVP candidates. Victor Wembanyama winning the Rookie of the Year, the French Go-Go Gadget, and what I'll do now, as I did with the West, is cover off high level sort of top teams in the conference, and then go through the second round and my predictions. So with no further ado, we'll jump in and discuss very high level the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Hawks, very good coach. I think ultimately the experiment of Murray and Trae Young has just not worked. I've got my issues with both really off the court. I've quite liked Trae Young and his ability to win a couple of games in previous playoff years, especially down the wire. But ultimately, the dynamic of Murray and Trae Young isn't working. So expect one. And the rumours seem to be maybe it might be more Trae Young, given they might get a bit more back for him. And obviously the Lakers highly touted, but expect them to make some moves and see where they land for next year. The Bulls, predictably okay. They've got some decent players: Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, et al. But that's really it. They've got no standout performers. And I could see them floating around 5, 6, 7 in the East for the next few years, to be honest, unless they're able to pick up something for Zach LaVine or make some moves. But I can't imagine them being a high price tag for any of their players out there. The Heat, who boast Eric Spoelstra, for me the best coach in the NBA. Really unbelievable run last year to finish 8th and then make it all the way to the NBA Finals. But really it was too much this year, regardless of whether Jimmy Butler played against the Celtics. They were never going to get it past this year. And again, I think they're lacking pieces. Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero. I'm not sure, again, with a mixed match of undrafted players. They really do get the most out of each and every player, and they get the most out of what they got ultimately. And so I think unless they're able to somehow make that Dame trade, Dame wanted to move there, didn't happen. After the season the Bucks have had, I can see that actually coming to fruition. How it happens is obviously the biggest challenge, given the lack of pieces to move, but it should be interesting to see. But really the Heat have maximised for me their capability. A team that I do not like, but equally find frustrating, which is a weird feeling as a sports fan, but a team that I don't like, given I'm a big Boston Celtics fan, is the 76ers. So more from a old school rivalry. It must be one of the great disasters in American sports history. The constant losing for many years and tanking to eventually get 2 number 1 or 3 number 1 picks. I think Embiid was the number 1 pick or top 3 pick. Simmons a number 1 pick. Markelle Fultz, who the Celtics absolutely mugged off in that trade, of which I think we drafted Jason Tatum, moving down from number 1 to number 3 and getting another draft pick. Or I think that was maybe off the back of a previous one, but ultimately we played them for a fiddle, and Simmons is no longer there, Markelle Fultz is no longer there. shining light is Tyrese Maxey, who for me is the Eastern Conference's answer to Anthony Edwards. You know, hugely talented, explosive. Embiid for me, it's the same thing every year. He gets injured. For me, he plays soft. For a guy that's 7'2", he should be physically destroying teams, absolutely laying it on them. And I think he looks for the foul rather than, for me, just going in and dominating. So I think he's a little bit like Karl Anthony Towns, where you know these guys are 7'1", 7'2", but they play like a guy that might be 6'9". You know, so he should really be in there influencing the game physically more than he does. And so I think really they've probably got one more year. I thought when they got Nick Nurse, that would break the curse of getting further than the second round, but that's not the case. You know, it's another year of disappointment for the 76ers. I think getting Tobias Harris's contract, who I think his agent should go in the Hall of Fame for getting him $185 million for 5 years. I always thought, you know, he had the game to be a poor man's Jason Tatum, but I think I might be giving him a bit of a compliment. So he'll be gone. There'll be some extra cash in the back pockets of the 76ers to make a play, and I think Daryl Morey, the GM, is going to have to make a big play. Otherwise, Embiid, who's certainly on the Knicks' eye line, will potentially be asking for a trade, especially given all that he's had to put up with Simmons and Harden in years gone by. The Pacers, nice little team. Pascal Siakam, NBA champion with the Raptors, really good player. Halliburton, breakout year. And Miles Turner, again, a really capable centre. Got a really good team. Are they deep enough? Do they need another year in them? Do they need maybe one more piece? I think potentially. I think Halliburton's been a little bit shy of what he was pre sort of injury this year. It should be interesting, but they're certainly a well-run organisation and a team to watch moving forward. The Magic. Is this going to be the re-emergence of the mighty Orlando Magic out of the doldrums? Where have they been since the Shaq attack and Penny Hardaway? With Pablo Banchero, who's an absolute man-mountain. The guy moves like LeBron. He's 6'10". I mean, he's an absolute freight train. They've got the two Corton Tark Wagner brothers, the old Germans, double act. This is another team that could possibly do with an experienced player just coming in and helping guide these guys. But you know, they're certainly not far off really contending for the title, I think, especially as Pablo Banchero continues to develop into an NBA superstar. Cleveland. Disappointing. Donovan Mitchell, who for me is certainly one of the best players in the league. Him coming in to play with Garland and Allen. For me, it's a really good team. On paper, they should be further up the table in a really weak and Eastern Conference. And the rumours are out that Donovan Mitchell might be on his way this year, so might be a need for a reset with the Cleveland Cavs, because for a team with as many good players as they've got, they've certainly underperformed this year, so it should be interesting. They should give the Celtics a decent run, but it's going to be off the back of whether other players can back up Donovan Mitchell. The Bucks. Well, Giannis is definitely throwing his weight around. I mean, he was certainly LeBron-esque in pushing for moves and they moved on from the mighty Drew Holiday, who is well regarded among the league and certainly well regarded by the Bucks. But they moved him on ultimately to draft Dame Lillard, and I just didn't understand the move. While Dame's outside Steph Curry the best shooter in the league, it just didn't address their issues with what they were facing in overall winning the championship, but overall getting through the Eastern Conference, especially considering teams like the Celtics, Cavs, and maybe even the Pacers having fast wingers, players that can shoot from deep. They just didn't address the ability to defend from deep. I know they had Pat Bev, but that headbanger who should be certainly banned for the best part of the season for throwing a ball not once but twice at fans, and in particular a lady. It just didn't address their issues, and with Giannis certainly being injured across that series against the Pacers didn't help. They had a poor record against the Pacers this season anyway with Giannis, so they're another team in transition, an old team that really lack some capable wings, and so I think they're going to have to make some moves, and it should be interesting off season for them, especially if Giannis is throwing his weight around. He, like Embiid, may look for pastures new if their respective organisations aren't able to go further in the playoffs next season. The Knicks, the 76ers and the Celtics, those Boston, Philly and New York, all on the East Coast, are quite similar towns in that sort of blue-collar, hard-working mentality. And I don't think any of them quite display that fight and that grit more than the Knicks. And they've got Tom Thibodeau, who's a bit of a Marmite type coach. You either love or hate him. There's probably more hate for him, but certainly they're playing for him, and he's a grinder. He's a coach that demands your absolute all, and they're certainly giving him that, and led by a couple of the boys from Villanova, who certainly as a college portray that type of mentality in games. Derek Brunson, the Staffy, he literally looks like a Staffy. I think he's as wide as he is tall. It's certainly been a big win for them. Like I say, certainly in there with a chance of MVP, albeit I think he'll fall just shy. But hell of a season getting this Knicks team to second in the East, albeit the East is weak. To make a run like they did in the second half of the season was, huge amounts of credit. I think if they could pull off a big trade, of which they've certainly got the pieces and the draft capital and the salary cap to pull off, if they could get a Giannis or an Embiid. I know LeBron's been rumoured, but I can't see him playing under Tim Thibodeau. They could really be a team that could challenge for the title. I think OG Anunoby has been a really good pickup. Julius Randle really is typically poor in the playoffs, so the fact that he's not there, I don't think is a huge hindrance. But if he was the third or fourth best player on that team rather than being number two, I think they could really give the Celtics a run in the East. And they've got Josh Hart, who reminds me of his fellow ex-Laker KCP, and just being a player that pops up with a nice three-pointer when they typically need it. So really good team, the Knicks. Big bounce back year. The Madison Square Garden is it's a stadium that every fan, every player, players of old, players of new, all really enjoy playing in New York. And so it's been a travesty actually that Dolan, the owner of the team, has run it so poorly for so many years, but they seem to be really beginning their act right. And so should be interesting to see how they go. Celtics, the mighty and beloved Boston Celtics. I think we actually probably forget, even though it's his second season, but Joe Mazzulla came under or took over the reins of the Celtics as coach under acrimonious circumstances last year. Ime Udoka, who was messing around, should we say, with female staff, was put on leave, wasn't formally sacked last year. The second coach, or the sort of next in line, Ed Hardy, moved on to coach the Jazz. So again, if timing had worked out, Ed Hardy might have been the head coach. And it was Joe Mazzulla who was actually not even sitting front court, so he used to sit in the second row. Came on and unexpectedly was then leading one of the biggest organizations in NBA history, along with the Lakers, one of the biggest brands in NBA. And it's like someone coming from second division to coach Man United, which on reflection might not be the worst idea for Man United at the moment, but we'll move on from that. But I don't think people quite grasp the gravity of what a big job it was for a inexperienced coach, having his assistants, or certainly one of the main assistants, take a college job. I think in the lead up to the playoffs last year, having better, more experienced help around him this year, I think has certainly helped. Making the moves for Porzingis and Drew Holiday were unbelievable. My one concern for the Celtics remains is that they're too 3-point reliant. They live and die by the three, and they should really be getting to the rim and scoring points and finding the easy buckets when they go through tough runs during games. The benefit is that every guy can shoot from deep, and therefore they can spread defenses across the D. But like I say, they should really be then making the most of it and driving to the basket. And, a few jump shots, a few pull-ups, getting to the rim. I think would just keep teams guessing more, and I'd really like to see more of that. But seem to be heavily reliant on the three, and Joe Mazzulla seems to want to play that way. So that'll be my concern, and how they handle their tight games late in the fourth, which this season they've not done well. But I think the moving Marcus Smart, who is dear to my heart and dear to most Celtic fans' heart, I think moving him and getting a player like Drew Holiday should hopefully give us a good chance this year to really win it all. And I'll lead on to the Celtics and Cavs. I think, as I might have mentioned earlier, I think the Cavs are going to rely on an absolute stud in Donovan Mitchell, who's torn the Celtics to shreds on many occasions. But I think outside of him, they're really going to have to rely on their backup players to really complement him if they're going to stand any chance. But even without Porzingis, I think if he's going to be out for most of the series, I think the Celtics should get it done in 5. I think typically the Celtics play down to teams, so I could see them losing a game, but I want them to start. They've got to start off hot, really put the pressure on the Cavs, and if they throw away a game, or similar scenario like they had with the Heat, where a team shoots unbelievably well and wins a game, fair enough, but they should not be losing more than one game in the series. So the Celtics in 5. The other playoff, the Pacers and Knicks. Fortunately, Brunson's 43 points today was sort of overshadowed by some shocking ref calls, and think the Pacers really showed that they're not going to be a pushover, and I think Halliburton's just not quite at the level that he was earlier on the season, which was unbelievable. But Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, they've got some good players there, so it should be an interesting series. I could see this one going deep, but I just think that extra little bit of grit that the Knicks have got, I think, should see them through. So I've got the Knicks in 6, Celtics in 5, and Knicks Celtics finals in the East. And that's it for the East. Thanks, guys. I'll be seeing you soon.